I write, I keep it live cause I thrive. I might just blow your mind tonight. I'm so hyped, but it's no hype. From this height, it's direct hits on sight. I'm your type, lend me your ears to show you that there's something in me. I'm not giving up, I'm standing right here, holding these days hostage. And I'll make this my year. We turning fear into love, and the love's in the air. I love doing this cause nothing compares. Nothing can share that same type of feeling when you feeling them flares. They can't catch it, it's havoc. I rip to a tear, switch the scenario. My stereos, I leave them impaired. Variables start to change and they're all in my range. I just gotta grab it, it's all mathematics. Every step is drastic, I make it fantastic. I'm trying to take your breath away. Asthmatic.
This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo. This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo.
Yeah, just nod your head with it. So explicit and vivid. Every image is intricate, intimate. I put my all into it. No scrimmage and no rules. I'm a pro tool. Hear my heartbeat beat into the vocals. I'm so loco, lost my mind, oh no. It's ponderoso, dope, so no overdose, cause it's dope, yo. Man, this is house grown, mixed with some milestones. So I let the style flow down like the Dow Jones. Bringing it with some foul tones, letting the crowd know we getting loud, so it's eardrum rudiments. Yeah, we bring it rude again. Move, little hooligan. Music for tuning in, full time to the 10. I'm on my clock like I told you. I'm doing this for dreams we pursuing.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Anti-Media Radio Show, once again with your host Nick Bernabe here on ucy.tv and the antimedia.org/radio. Really happy to be back alive and well on this Monday, October 9th, 2017. Wow, we're dealing with some crazy shit going on, aren't we? Some very interesting times. Good things, bad things happening. Great news today, it's Indigenous Peoples Day. So I'm celebrating. Got a really fine beer sitting here next to me that I'm enjoying, waiting for my co-host to jump on the line here and get busy with me on this just very intense informational overload era that we're living in right now. I mean, God, it's just relentless. It's just nonstop, right? We're barely getting over this shooting thing, and you know, I couldn't get myself to do this show last Wednesday just because it was just the conversation has just descended so far into the abyss that nobody's gonna change anything, unfortunately, when it comes to this issue with the, I don't want to say gun violence in America. I would just say violence. It's just, you know, America's a violent place. It's the conversation being had at the national level. The mainstream conversation it's useless. It's not going anywhere. Nothing's going to change. I didn't want to go into down the rabbit hole of the conspiracy theories because everybody's got a conspiracy theory. Everybody's an expert on this stuff, and nobody actually knows what the hell they're talking about. For the most part. And the people that do know what they're talking about, no one wants to listen to them because it doesn't fit into their little narrative of, oh, the government's, you know, somehow this incompetent government that can't even run the damn VA correctly, this incompetent government that can't even run the DMV correctly is somehow engineering every single mass shooting in this country and perfectly executing it and leaving no loose ends. No witnesses are able to, you know, be found. There's no whistleblowers, no leaks, nothing. And somehow this stuff is, I mean, I hate to burst your bubble, and I still have an open mind on this shooting. Maybe there is a second guy, but come on, dude. Some of these conspiracy theories are so simplistic and dumbed down that, like, they're laughable. Like, when people say, well, how can he have gotten all those guns up there? I want to slap people because that's just the dumbest question I've ever heard. I've got a gun a few feet away from me right now, an AR-15, that if I open the case and open up the gun, I could take it apart in 2 seconds, throw it in a backpack, and I can go down the street 5 minutes and walk into a hotel and be posted up on the balcony in 20 minutes from now without even having a plan. So, it's just come on, dude. Like, if you're going to have a conspiracy theory, base it on something legit. You got a whistleblower, you got a leaked document, you have some legitimate evidence showing an actual second shooter, not some strobe light going off on the 5th floor. By all means, let's hear it. But when people go around pushing these conspiracy theories out as if, oh, this is what really happened, I'm sorry, but you're actually doing us and anyone else looking for the truth a disservice. You're making anyone that talks about any conspiracy, no matter how proven or legitimate they are, look like idiots. And I honestly think this is going on deliberately. Here's my conspiracy theory, right? Things like Your Newswire and Neon Nettle and shit. Like, dude, if you look at the fact checking, you look at Snopes, these are the ones that they always cite. They don't cite the legitimate news outlets that are legitimately asking real questions, not jumping to conclusions, but just saying, hey, look, we have questions. Those aren't the ones that are getting fact-checked by Snopes. It's Your Newswire, it's Neon Nettle, it's these crazy lunatics that say, oh, the alien reptilian overlords engineered Hillary Clinton in some kind of body double that is, genetically modified with nanotechnology. The craziest, most outlandish InfoWars crap. That's the stuff that gets fact-checked, and it makes everybody look bad. So, like I said, you got legitimate questions about this thing. So do I. But automatically saying, you know what, I know this is some kind of conspiracy. I know it, and you don't have any really good proof to back it up. Well, I'm sorry to say it, but you're basically just as bad, if not worse, than the people who are saying, well, I totally believe the government's story every single time with everything. You're actually worse because you actually think that you're smarter than those people when you do the exact same thing on the opposite end of the spectrum. I'm sorry. At least the people who believe the government at their word for everything, at least they don't pretend like they're smarter than everybody else. Or act like they're awake, or not sheep, or call other people sheep, call people sheeple and shit. Come on, dude. Let's genuinely seek the truth. Let's not jump to conclusions that aren't, the evidence isn't there to jump to him. I think the guy had help. I don't think we know the whole story yet. But I have not seen any evidence to show there was a second shooter. I haven't. So, and I've been looking and trying to see if there's any evidence. And a lot of people have already made their minds up. And no matter what happened, no matter what's said, it's like you already made your mind up. I mean, it's not healthy. That's not a good way to look at these kind of events. And, we got to give it a nuanced look at it, a critical look from both sides. And that way we can have conversations with people and actually convince them without coming off as some lunatic or, being outlandish or being just fringe as hell. The conversation needs to be brought in from the fringes because the people on the fringe, they've already been convinced. I mean, they're so convinced that everything's a false flag to these people. Like, you don't even have to convince those people no more. So, the more effective conversations are not being had on the margins. They're being had with mainstream people who normally are just, whatever about stuff. And those are the people who we can have conversations with. But you're not going to have a conversation with them talking about alien, reptilian, Hillary Clinton, George Soros, Antifa, planted this guy in there, unless there was actual proof of that, which, is unlikely. But, like I said, man, I've been a conspiracy theorist for a long time. But I've been able to step back and take a look from, an objective look at this stuff. And, half the conspiracy theories out there are just as bad as not questioning shit at all. They're outlandish. They're crazy. I mean, all the crap that's cooked up on Your Newswire, it's literal fiction. They're works of fiction that people believe that crap. They share it all the time. I mean, that website, I think, gets more visits than the anti-media. It's fucking fake news. It's literally fictional. And it gets more hits than our website does. And believe me, it pisses me off. It's frustrating. But that's just that. It is what it is, man. People out there want to believe crap. They're gonna believe it. They're gonna share it without critically taking a look at it. Most of this, 95% of the crap on your newswire can be fact checked in like 20 seconds and just written off. The 5% of the time that they're correct is when they plagiarize off of us or somebody, someone else. They plagiarize articles from them. Anyway, this is the topic I didn't want to talk about tonight because we've had these conversations many, many times, and you guys know my stance on gun violence. You guys know what we talk about when there's gun violence. I'm not an advocate of gun control and all that, so we don't need to talk about that. We've already covered it too many times. I couldn't even cover it last Wednesday because it was just, I'm just so tired of talking about that I can't even talk about it no more. So what are we going to talk about tonight? Well, I kind of wanted to go into Columbus Day, man, because there's a lot of history there. And this is one of the topics where I'm very glad to see a lot of people are starting to say, you know what? No, Columbus was a fucking dickhead. Columbus initiated genocide against Native Americans. Columbus was a rapist. Columbus, for all we know, was a murderer. And this is a good topic for us to go into because this is a topic where we're making so much headway on both sides of the political spectrum. And, the general population is now starting to just say, you know what, this is ridiculous. Why are we celebrating this guy's life? I mean, all he did was destruction and, pretended like he discovered a place that was already inhabited. How do you discover a place that's already inhabited by human beings? That's just ridiculous. So anyway, let's get us started. Now I'm being joined by my awesome longtime co-host, DB Schwartz. What's up, dude?
Hey, not much, man. Just a little bit busy today, but... Yeah, dude. Columbus Day represents a lot of things. I mean, it's slowly transitioning into Indigenous Peoples Day, which is cool. People should really research Columbus because what you think you know about him is very different than the actual man. And he was one of the most heinous people you could never imagine how horrible. And if there's a hell, he's there.
Yeah, I mean, to put it bluntly, the guy was
I mean, I don't want to go too much into it, but one of Columbus's games was playing hack-a-limb with the natives. He would see if they were dumb enough to hold their hand out for him to take his sword to it, or their arm, or their leg, and because they had never experienced warfare, violence, or torture, they had no idea, so they were naive enough to hold it out, and he would hack it off and laugh until they'd just bleed to death. I mean, or he would spike kids, he would spike babies, and yes, he was a cannibal. So these were people that the original colonizers considered the natives to be no different than sheep or chicken or pigeons or any other thing you could eat, literally. I mean, they didn't consider them human.
It's ridiculous and completely inhumane. What happened, and it started off a chain of events, which for better or for worse, it is what it is.
It's for worse, dude. Could you imagine a world where the Native Americans had advanced their technology and kept their spirituality? I mean, the world would be so much better.
Yeah, there's no telling. There's no telling what the world would be like because of course, the other thing too is that there was a lot of benign. Native American tribes that were relatively peaceful, small tribes that, if they did have skirmishes with neighboring tribes, I don't know, one or two people would die, maybe a few people would just get hurt or whatever. It wasn't like, okay, mass slaughter.
But warriors would fight. They wouldn't kill innocent women and children. Warriors would meet on the battlefield and fight like men. And it was something they were trained to do, and if they died fighting another warrior, that's not murder. That's real war. What we're doing right now is just mass murder.
Yeah. But also, another point to make here is, of course, there was, over time, the Native Americans developed their own empires, and a lot of these empires were not nice people. They did really horrible things before the Europeans showed up. Human sacrifices, genocide, and, on a smaller scale. But the Aztecs did some of this stuff. The Mayans did some of this kind of stuff.
It's mostly like a Central American thing, Nick. If I know you're a student of history like me, it was like some god that they, and I don't even know if you even want to touch ancient aliens, but for some reason the Central Americans were all into blood ritual.
Yeah, human sacrifices and stuff, very common. So what I'm saying is that they weren't fully, benign, but either way, the Europeans came over, they colonized, they conquered, they committed genocide, they enslaved, they forced people out of their land, they more or less imprisoned them and stuff. A lot of bad, really, really bad stuff, and a lot of it had to do with, there's a lot of things. There are different factions of Europe came and conquered over here in the Americas. But one of the major things that went on in the U.S. was manifest destiny and that kind of thing, where it was, people were told that they were superior, that they had a right, and in fact they had like a destiny to this land and a fate to go conquer it, more or less. It was, they were very convinced about it, and using that, I guess you can call it propaganda. I think a lot of the people came across the United States killing Native Americans and not even really feeling bad about it. Like you said, DB, they thought of people who look different than them as less than human, so they didn't feel bad. It's like, I killed it. It's like killing a deer, killing a livestock. It's like, it's not that big of a deal because, we're told that we're better than them and that they're subhuman and all that. And I guess the same theory was probably used more or less when it came to enslaving people and that kind of thing.
It was really absurd what the Jesuits did initially. They they said, we're going to provide you the opportunity to convert, and because they, one, couldn't speak Spanish, and two, had no idea what the hell they were talking about, they ended up killing most of the men, just simply in that first wave. And then, of course, the disease spread after and mopped them up. But that's what it was. That it was coming out there and trying to do full-scale, like, religious conversions, and ended up genociding the entire population through disease primarily.
Yeah. So, that is the legacy of Christopher Columbus. It's not one of discovery and of, happy things and awesome times. It's one of the most gruesome and brutal acts in history went down here in the United States and in the Americas, North and South. It was particularly nasty down in Mexico, the Spaniards, what they did. And, they, instead of using, I guess in the U.S. it was a mixture of different things. The Spaniards used more of a religious-based excuse to commit genocide. And only recently, I think it was just recent. The latest pope was the one that apologized, wasn't he? He apologized for the way what the church did.
It's funny because he's from Argentina, so it's like he's apologizing for something he ended up kind of going through, and then when they found out he was involved in what he was involved in down there with squashing the leftist uprising, they're like, "All right, man, like we're going to take everything you say with a grain of salt."
Yeah, so, at least the church has apologized. They haven't returned, all the money and, property and gold and, religious artifacts. The church did permanent damage to history down in Mexico, especially where they defaced a lot of the old, hieroglyphic type, writings and a lot of the monuments and the pyramids, the temples and stuff. The Spaniards came through and defaced a bunch of it. I saw some of it myself down in Tulum, which is over by Cancun. You go in there and you see one of the temples, one of the religious temples, and you see where there was like heads that were like should have been there, where they were like protruding out of like a beam in the ceiling. They were just chiseled off. Like they just chiseled it off, and they were either too lazy or didn't have the manpower to deconstruct, pyramids and big, huge stone temples and stuff like that. So they just went over, they defaced a bunch of anything that could be competing with the Catholic God. And, they cracked all those calendars, those huge stone round calendars that the Mayans and the Aztecs were famous for. The church cracked most of those up and broke them up, and the only ones that are surviving are ones that the Native Americans hid. They buried them underground and stuff like that because they knew the Spanish were coming, and they've excavated those recently. They've only rediscovered those in the past, I think, 100 years. They uncovered the first one, then they found a second one recently. So yeah, dude. I mean, this is the legacy of Columbus, and the fact that the United States is over here, the government is celebrating this. It's just ridiculous, man. But like I said, I'm celebrating today because Indigenous Peoples Day. It's a good day to celebrate, the people who were here before the Europeans arrived, and I'm at least part Native American. I don't know the exact history, what tribe it's from or whatever, but I know my grandma's part Native American, so at least I have a little bit of blood from this land. But the people are still here. The Native Americans are still here, and you know what? They're getting treated really badly by the government. I mean, of course, they got their property stolen and stuff, but go look at the demographics of police killings. Everyone knows that Black Americans get killed at a much higher rate than white Americans per capita, right? But what many people don't know is that Native Americans get killed at an even higher rate than Black Americans do. And so, to this day, Native Americans are still getting screwed, dude. Go look at the places where they have mining, uranium mines that they never bothered cleaning up. Go look at Arizona. Go look in Colorado, Utah. Go look at Standing Rock. What's still going on? They build a pipeline right through their sacred land. A pipeline that has already spilled a few times. A pipeline that they basically sent an army in to go decamp these people that were trying to stop it from going through their sacred land.
And I think we're going to see why they brought in basically a paramilitary force with, at any minute we're going to have a breakout either against North Korea or Iran. I mean, honestly, in my opinion, they're going to go with North Korea. And I feel like they think they can just mop them up real quick, and they want this pipeline so that we have a domestic source of oil for the war machine, because when war really does start, everything in the Middle East is not going to come over anymore because that's going to just be lit up on fire. So I really think that's what it's about, Nick. I think these people have been planning this long-term, long drawn-out, long play war all around the world, and they've knocked country A down one after another. And now they only have like a couple left, and the easier one, I guess, to them is North Korea, and then they'll knock Iran out, and that'll be the 7 countries. Because I don't know if people know this, but we're in Somalia right now. We've mopped them up for good. I mean, we have a permanent military base there. We're building one right now in Nigeria. Okay.
And then, dude, several U.S. Forces just got killed in Niger and Mali.
Niger. So now we're taking that whole. So basically, we're like cutting Africa in half. We're giving like the middle and the south to China, and we're taking like the northern area, like the Middle East scoped area. That's what it seems like. And eventually, maybe we'll have like a fourth world war there, a proxy.
Yeah, very Orwellian. But yeah, dude, and those are all indigenous people as well. So, indigenous people are still getting screwed, dude. Everywhere, all around the world, indigenous people are getting screwed.
You could say they are the indigenous people, because as much as we know about human evolution, that seems to be where the first modern man came about. So we're talking about the root of all of us, if we believe that sphere of science.
Yep. And you guys remember how much we were involved in Standing Rock. I was the main correspondent, and I developed my own sources, and we had people on the ground. Derek Bros did a great job over there, and we did our best to help. It was one of those moments where a news outlet picks a side, and of course, in the end, it's my call with the anti-media and stuff. But with Standing Rock, I mean, it wasn't even a debate. It wasn't like, oh, well, should we pick the side of the oil company, or should we pick the side of the Native Americans who have had all their fucking land stolen from them for several hundred years. It wasn't like a debate. It was like, we're picking a side here, and we're picking the side of the indigenous. And so I really was the one covering that. I broke a couple stories, and we got a lot of exposure to that. In fact, we started covering that very early on. There was no mainstream coverage at all until the day that we broke a story that was really, really big. It's when they did the first mass arrest, and the cops came in looking just like straight up thugs, and it was a bunch of cops. And you guys remember that first day? All those military vehicles, Humvees and MRAPs, and all the cops, military gear, and all the protesters were pretty much caught off guard, and they were just dropping like flies, getting arrested and beat up. And Derek showed up a few days later, and he got beat up, tased. They jacked his phone, But I was covering that really closely. I broke that story, and after that story went super, super viral. I'm sure you guys have heard of Unicorn Riot now by this time.
They're up here.
When I broke that story, Unicorn Riot had 6,000 likes on Facebook, and the whole story, the reason why that story went so viral was because not only was this mass arrest unfolding, but Facebook was blocking the links from being shared online. And so I kind of wrapped that story about how, look, this mass arrest is happening and it's being censored by Facebook, and that's what really made it go viral. And Unicorn Riot went from like 6,000 likes to 60,000 likes a week later. And I'm not going to take credit for Unicorn Riot, but I helped put them majorly on the map with that story just because it happened to go super viral. Sometimes things go viral and you don't know it's going to go viral. They just happen. It just happens that way, and that it happened that day. Previous to that, I wrote an article about why the media wasn't covering it, and it was basically what we've been talking about, is that people generally, I think, in the U.S., regardless of your political beliefs and stuff, people generally are like, yeah, you know what? The Native Americans really got treated really badly by the U.S. government. Everybody pretty much knows that. Whether you're a conservative or a liberal or an anarchist or a libertarian or a socialist, you're pretty much like, yeah, that's pretty much true. So when this story started going viral, you guys remember, there was a national unity early on with Standing Rock. And I was like, holy shit, we're actually gonna stop this thing. The people are finally gonna join up and we're gonna stop this thing. And then the politicians got involved, and the Obama administration got involved, and remember the Justice Department put out that statement like, oh, well, we're pretty much going to stop the pipeline or whatever. But we all know what happened. Everyone's like, oh, Obama stopped the pipeline. We're all going to go back to sleep now. We're all going to go back and forget that any of this happened. Meanwhile, the people on the ground were like, no, you guys, you got to stay and help us fight. This isn't over yet. And everybody was like, oh, Obama's so cool. He, stopped the pipeline and all that. We all know what happened. That pipeline is running right now. It's pumping oil. Obama didn't stop it. Eric Holder didn't stop. Who was the Justice Department at the time? I can't even remember, dude.
Yeah, that was him. I mean, for all the touting of Obama as an environmentalist, I mean, there's been no real policy changes. It's just the PR is not as slick. Instead, what they're doing is they're putting it in your face now because they're goading us into trying to rile us up.
Hey, the PR is good. It's just they're applying the PR to the other side. I mean, look at that move last night by Mike Pence, showing up to the 49er game, knowing damn well those guys were going to kneel down, knowing damn well that he was going to walk out, knowing damn well he had a press release ready. The moment he walked out, the press release was online, whitehouse.gov. The PR for the Trump administration is really good, actually. It's only it's applying to the other side, the side of American life that appeals to authority, the darker side of American life. And ironically, the Christian conservative right thinks that they're the more virtuous side, but I'd argue.
Well, you got to argue that it's the evangelicals and the Catholics, and they do not represent a vast majority of Christians. So what they do is they represent the vast majority of the money.
Yeah.
And that's why they were able to pump him and make him the Pied Piper candidate, and that's why Hillary is such an idiot, and why anybody involved with her political machine is a moron.
There's nothing wrong with Christianity. I mean, it's just the political Christianity that is a problem.
Well, it's just the organized, which is the evangelicals, the Mormons, and the Catholics. They're always pushing their shit on everyone.
Yeah. Yeah, so, I think the Trump administration is doing good PR to the other side. Obama really sold it as a centrist kind of liberal, we're putting a nice, clean look on America. We're trying to do better. When, Obama sold more federal land or opened up more federal land to oil interests than any president in recent times. So while the people on the right who voted for Trump or called Obama some kind of green socialist, some environmental lunatic radicalist, the reality was much different. I mean, he presided over the Dakota Access Pipeline. He opened up allowed for a shitload of fracking to get put into place. Many of it on public lands and stuff like that. Obama, I mean, you're right, dude. I mean, the policies between Obama and Trump haven't changed very much at all. I mean, there's
what's happened is that this is what's happened. For anybody that's wondering what's the difference between Trump and Obama in real life, in reality, Trump's basically taking all of the power out of the government's hands and putting it into the private corporations. Okay, that's it. That's the only difference. The same very, very pro-war hawk stance is there. So that's the important part because that's 50% of every single penny you earn. So what does it matter if it's going here or there or the guy on TV smiles better? You're still paying 50% of everything you earn to what? To drone bomb everywhere. That's what it's doing.
Yeah, and pay Mike Pence to go to 49er football games.
But it's such a small amount. It's inconceivable that would even affect any budget at all.
Yeah,
you know what? They bitched about Puerto Rico because Puerto Rico's billions, and that fucked up the military budget.
Yeah, that's the thing, dude, is that, we talk about the biggest issues on this show every single episode. Huge geopolitical, long game, empire stuff. But for some odd reason, dude, this fucking Pence thing really got under my skin. Maybe it's because there's just so much other shit going on with, all these people got killed in the shooting. There's probably going to be 10 times more people dead in Puerto Rico than anyone's really thinking that there is. I mean, a whole hospital
Texas.
Without
Can we get bros on sometime to give us a real report? Because I've heard in Texas now we're talking about more than they've been saying, like at least hundreds of people drowned.
I'm going to be out there. I'm going out. Let's see. I'll be in Texas Wednesday. I may not do the show Wednesday. Just heads up, everybody. I'm going out to Texas to visit some family. I'm going to go visit Derek in Houston. I'm going to go check out Houston. I'm gonna have a car when I go down there. I'm going to go check it out, see what's really happening. I'll be able to get a first-hand report and talk to some people on the ground. I guess there's like some kind of activist music event going on out there in Houston. I should have some more info on that as we get later on in the month.
Because if they're covering up something real big, it needs to come out. I've seen a lot of crazy videos from Texas about people that were saying people were getting put on barges and they left and they never saw them again. Some homeless people never came back. I've heard about that in Salt Lake City. My buddy out there that lives there said that's now becoming a thing where people are getting worried about it because they can't find them. So they're taking advantage of these opportunities to literally make people disappear. And I don't know if it's natural deaths or if they're doing heinous shit, but something's going on.
Yeah. And already the next disaster is unfolding. Hold on. We got a siren coming through.
It's over by you, isn't it, Nick?
Nothing bad. Yeah.
I saw there's 18 fires in California?
Well, the real bad ones right now are rolling through wine country up in Northern California and the coastal side.
You had an earthquake too, right?
Yeah, let me pull up. There's an article here. 10 dead, 1,500 structures burned. in California wine country, which is where the U.S. makes most of its wine. So this is no joke. The fires aren't like that big yet. I think they're like 50,000 acres, which I mean, it's pretty big, but we've had much bigger ones, but they're tearing through these areas so quickly that people are getting caught off guard. You normally don't see that many dead people in a fire. Maybe one or two people who couldn't escape because they were disabled or too old, or they breathed in smoke and they were just unhealthy and they died. But 10 people, I mean, people got trapped behind the fires, they couldn't escape. So I mean, it's like endless, dude. I mean, it's hurricane, it's shooting, it's fire, it's the next thing and the thing, and then it's North Korea, and then it's and all this shit is endless, and they take you from topic to topic to topic to topic, and of course we have to follow it along because we're trying to combat the propaganda that they build into these topics every time. But it can really leave you a sense of like helplessness and
And ironically, it goes full circle and does come back to the colonial mindset and how you can look and see, just according to our policy, that when they decided that they were going to go with the manifest destiny of the founding fathers, who were a conservative insurgency of slave owners that beat the monarchy at their own game and made the war too expensive, so the monarchy just gave up, and then they started going west, which is why they got in the fight in the first place, because the king did not want them to go west because France was there, and that created Napoleon. So if you read, if you read history, like basically because the Americans won their independence, it created a world stage for Napoleon, and then World War I, World War II, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, the war in Iraq. Everything came all after that because we were the empire that was not supposed to have been. And we've thrown the world in chaos the last 200 years. And because we were created as a warlike basically society, almost an anti-culture, you could say, because what we do is we genocided our way into our empire and did not basically earn it like other cultures do through actual warfare, which is, let's be honest, at least it's honorable to fight people versus giving them smallpox blankets. We really can't say much for ourselves, and we can still see that the manifest destiny is still going. It's just we got stonewalled in Asia.
It's built into this Kaepernick protest too, dude. I mean, the backlash from that is rife with American exceptionalism and manifest destiny and a lot of just very simplistic, almost like memes. These little land of the free, home of the brave. I mean, these things are like memes that they've propagandized. They've seared it into the brain with these kids at school. You pledge of allegiance every single day. National anthem at every single sporting event. I mean, these things are programmed into your head. Yep. And the fact that this Kaepernick thing keeps on generating conversation, and a lot of times when something like this would happen, it's easy to say, okay, this is just a distraction. I mean, this is just some bullshit. But this Kaepernick thing it's actually stirring up genuine conversations about colonialism, racism, oppression, the police state, the war on drugs. And that's exactly why Pence went out there and did what he did, because they're trying to get in front of this thing because it's actually effective. I mean, I never thought it would be some football player dude that was going to just take a knee and it was going to cause more social change than any political movement in the past, 15 years. But that's actually what I think is going on. The Kaepernick thing is creating a fucking effective political movement. And to the point where the president is having to try to get out in front of this thing, and they can't stop it. It's just getting worse. I just read today, one of my local friends here, their kid at school was in a game, and their kid kneeled down, one of my local activist friends. So, I mean, it's spreading to the kids. It's, the youth is talking about it. I mean, dude, this is Kaepernick's life work, dude. His football career is going to be on the side compared to what he's started here.
Which is ridiculous because he's probably better than at least a third or a half of the people that are starting now. So
yeah, dude. I mean, if he was on 49ers right now, they'd probably have a better record than they do.
They probably would. So it's not because he can't play.
But, yeah.
Yeah, it's funny that it would take, Muhammad Ali, had he been in the internet age, might have had the same widespread effect and appeal, especially with the youth. And people are tired of patriarchy, and they love to call it white supremacy. And I just think that, that's an affront. It's a patriarchy of a classist sect. They are all races and both sexes. They truly are. But there's more white old men, and that's true. And of course, there's more white old men who are the old Abrahamic religions of all religions. So they are the most extremist sects, and that is the problem. Sex, S-E-C-T, not S-E-X. But, what I'm trying to say is this, man. There's old religions and old gods, and these idiots have been worshiping them for years. And that's why Gaiman wrote American Gods, because the power structure is shifted with the internet and this new wave of information, and they simply cannot keep up with us to manipulate the reality and the narrative anymore. They can't do it. Nick, you're as good as an entire office full of highly paid CIA shills just by yourself at home on your laptop. You alone. And there's how many of you in the world? They just can't keep up.
Exactly, dude, and it's because of the power of decentralization. The internet unlocked it, and of course they're trying to reverse it. They're trying to contain it, but they're never going to be able to keep up. The technology is too fast. Human beings are flawed. Technology is perfect. Technology gets better and better and better. Human beings remain the same. So the human beings that are trying to control us, they're on the losing side because our technology keeps getting better and they can't keep up. Because a bunch of decentralized individual free people doing what they want to do is a lot better than an army of people coerced into doing horrible things that they don't believe in. It's like that old reality that a mercenary army is never going to permanently overcome an indigenous army. An army fighting for its own homeland, for its own beliefs, its own way of life is always going to overcome some dude that comes in there that's just paying people to fight for no reason.
And Nick, your quote right there, can you just bronze that? Because that's the reason why we can't get rid of the Second Amendment. I'm tired of hearing of all these keyboard dipshits saying, "Oh, what are you going to do? Fight drones and the tanks with your AR-15?" Yeah, dude. It works. It's called guerrilla warfare, you dipshit. Yeah. Why don't you do some military history study and find out that insurgents always win when they outnumber and they're armed. When they're disarmed, they're always genocided.
Yeah, exactly, dude. And that's exactly why the U.S. can't win in Afghanistan, because the only way to win would literally be to kill off all the people.
Do you think they're going to beat a bunch of hunters? You think you're going to beat 60 million hunters? Are you kidding me? You stupid idiots out there that think we couldn't fight. You wusses that'll sit on the sideline will just get shot in the head.
Yeah, if you put it like that, that isn't an argument. It's not an argument. I've seen it on like the late night TV guys, the comedian guys. Like, oh yeah,
you're cowards, and they're going to leave the country right away. Anybody listening to a celebrity, they're going to leave the country immediately.
Dude, it's like they forgot about Vietnam. They forgot that Vietnam happened. They forgot that Korea happened. They forgot that Afghanistan is still happening.
Stop believing Jimmy Kimmel's crocodile tears, dude. He's going to leave the country. He has a fully armed security squad on him at all times. You idiots. Stop listening to celebrities.
Except for Colin Kaepernick. He's cool.
Well, if you're fighting for something that is a right we should have, that's to not be killed by the police.
What's crazy
and have due process.
Quote unquote liberal dudes are fighting against civil liberties. They're speaking out against civil liberties. The Second Amendment, the right to guns, is a civil right.
What do you think's going to happen if they repeal the Second Amendment under Trump?
the first gun, the earliest gun control legislation was aimed at disarming black people because they were the Black Panthers.
Yeah.
Like, gun control is not a liberal thing. It's actually a very, I don't know, it's a very fascist thing. I don't know.
People need to watch the movie Detroit. They're going to pull a Detroit times every major city here soon. And what that...
I don't like guns either, dude. Like, I have a gun, and I know how to shoot it, but...
It's just for self-defense.
I honestly don't want to live in a place where everybody walks around armed because everyone's so fucking afraid of everybody, or it's so dangerous that you got to shoot people. No. I don't want to live in a place like that, but I also don't want to live in a place where they say you can't have any guns.
Yeah. When you're in the UK.
Yourself. And if anything happens, you have to call the cops because you're unarmed. I mean, in England, they're now rounding up knives. They're rounding up
the cops are unarmed.
They say these type of knives are now illegal. You have to turn them into the cops, or if we catch you with it, you're going to jail for a knife.
Dude, they have no knives. They have now they're making it so you have to show your ID before you buy teaspoons because they're having a heroin epidemic. Now they're saying you have to be over 18 to buy bleach because people are making acid bombs. That's what happens when you leave all the power to your government. And then get this, the government can be dissolved at any time by the Queen. So you're all slaves right now over there. Don't even talk about freedom. Don't even talk to me about safety if you live in the UK. Don't even pretend you care about mass murder, mass gun shootings over here. You're all a bunch of slaves. Shut up.
Damn, you're on a roll tonight, dude.
Because I get tired of it, dude.
Yeah,
the only reason we can even talk right now is because of our amendment. Our amendments backing up the Constitution and all the addendums that close loopholes, so that tyranny has to work hard here.
The truth is,
it's easy everywhere else.
The only rights that are guaranteed are those which you are able to defend yourself. And I know I've talked about this a lot recently because of all the cop killings, and it's become obvious that whether you know your rights or not, and whether you consent to a search or not, you can still end up dead because they kill you because they feel like it, or because the guy's having a bad day and he just wants to beat somebody up because his marriage has gone to shit, or whatever reason these guys have. I've firmly come to believe that rights don't actually exist anywhere, like on paper or anything. The only right that exists is that which you can violently defend, or a right that the government is scared to take from you. A lot of that has to do with you being able to defend yourself from them, and retaliation, and radical self-defense, militias, and that kind of thing. Those are the final check and balance on a tyrannical government. Let's not pretend like we're not dealing with a tyrannical situation right now. And that's also my criticism of the people on the right who are like, well, you're not taking my guns. What if the government is bad one day? It's like, dude, you guys are a little late to the party here. If you genuinely gave a shit about gun rights as a check on tyranny, you would have taken up arms against the U.S. government 60, 70 years ago, a long time ago.
Well, the 60s.
And so, that's the other thing. The other side of the equation where you got these hypocritical conservatives where they act like they're going to do some shit when in reality they're actually going to be fucking Trump's foot soldiers rounding up minorities, rounding up Muslims, rounding up Mexicans. They're going to be the boots of tyranny. They're not going to be the check and balance on it. So, this is another reason why people on the other end of the spectrum need to shut the hell up about guns and start buying them yourself. Stop trying to take them out of the hands of these lunatic fringe conservatives, because that's not going to happen. And even if it does, they're going to hide them away. You're never going to get them all anyway. You guys need to load up your guns to make sure the check and balance is not only against tyranny, but against, the foot soldiers of tyranny, which would, those dudes would be the jackboots, the alt-right and all these guys, these young dudes that are on the Trump train, all that shit. Those guys are the stormtroopers of the Fourth Reich. If it came to that, those are the guys that would be knocking on your door trying to find out what the hell's in your house. So
it could devolve to that, and
we can't count on conservatives to defend our liberty when they only have an interest in defending their own property and the shit that they already inherited, and the whole power structure. That's what they want to protect. And if a guy like Trump came along and promised them to save that part of society, shit, they'd fight for it. And so, That's why I like this new group. Have you guys heard of the Redneck Revolt? Pretty interesting, like a radical left anarchist group that is, it's a leftist group that's into gun rights and stuff. That is pretty interesting because, look, dude, not that I want to choose sides here, but checks and balances, very important. If one sect of society, if only conservatives were the ones that, stockpiled arms, which is basically what's happening right now, then guess what's going to happen when shit hits the fan? You're going to have a theocracy.
Yeah, I mean, it's getting there.
You know what I mean? Who's that fucking shitty pastor from Houston?
Oh, yeah, Austin.
You have Joel Austin as your fucking dictator. You want that? You don't want that.
I mean, the way they're going to rearrange education system because...
need to shut up about gun control and need to start loading up guns of their own because we need rational people to win the battles. We don't want a theocracy. We don't want these lunatics that think Trump is doing a good job to win. Because if they do, this place is so fucked, it's not even funny. And let's face it, dude, no one's taking away the guns. It ain't happening. It's not going to happen. I think. Well,
it may happen in states that allow it to willingly happen, but as far as an edict going out, it won't be. It'll be more of a state. It's going to be a state decision soon. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So you're going to be in a state that's going to have one of the most contentious legal battles there is.
Look, I'm not a big fan of states. Of course, they're a reality, and I wish they would be smaller. But I think that if a municipality wanted to put laws in place about firearms, then I think that's a whole other story. Like, I think there's no matter how far advanced we get, there's still going to be city governments, there's still going to be local governments, and if a local municipality, if the people in that municipality want to say, you know what, we don't want guns in our town, in our city, I'm okay with that. I'm not okay with the federal government coming around and saying, okay, you know what, guys, we're repealing the Second Amendment and everyone's got to hand up their guns, or they put some kind of severe restrictions on guns. I'm not okay with it.
Did you see a guy he's a California or ex-California Republican or conservative that moved to Texas, and now he's online trying to like job hunt and recruit for other people to move from other states to Texas who are Republicans? Like, I'm starting to see that everything becomes a wedge divider, and in that way the planners, the actual real societal planners, are kind of societally engineering the U.S. into the mold they want, kind of playing on the fringes of different amendments of the Constitution, and at some point they're going to use the second and knock that down a peg in a conservative state when it's against a marginalized group that the majority doesn't like. I could easily see them saying, well, this is so-and-so state in, this part of the country. We're not going to allow that kind of speech because it goes against the majority's religion. That's the wrong religion.
I mean, I could see a state like, let's just say, Mississippi, that says, all right, well, we're conservative and, we love our guns, but you know what? Muslim people shouldn't be allowed to have guns. I can see a state trying to do, this is the kind of mentality that people actually believe, dude. I shit you. You think that people are evolved to the point where they wouldn't discriminate based on race or religion, certain rights, where people would actually, I bet you if you asked people in the Deep South, conservatives, and you said, should Muslims have the same free speech as regular white folks? I bet you a lot of people would say, no, they shouldn't. Because there's a lot of ignorance out there, dude, and people are all for free speech, and it's like this whole free speech movement that's part of the alt-right. It's like, oh yeah, we're free speech advocates, and we're doing all this stuff for free speech, and then when someone does an act of free speech that they disagree with, all of a sudden it's like, oh, this is ridiculous, I can't believe they did that, and like when, what's her name, Kathy Griffin had the severed, the decapitated Trump head. And everyone, all these conservatives were like, oh, well, I can't believe that. That's unacceptable, blah, 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 blah. And then the next day they're like, well, we're marching for free speech, and it's just a coincidence that half of our participants are doing Nazi salutes and shit, but, that's protected under free speech. It's a bunch of hypocritical bullshit. People are okay with having rights for themselves. Go look this up. I mean, the statistics are there, dude. I've seen so many studies about this already. That's why I'm able to generalize here and make these comments. Because it's already true. I already know it's true. These guys, are willing to, they see their own rights as, should Christians have, all these rights, and should Christians be able to have a role in government? It's like, oh yeah, totally, yes, for sure. And then you ask the same thing: should Muslims have those same exact rights? People are like, no, that's not acceptable. And so, I hate to say it, dude, but like I think people are probably going to think that way. There's not much we can really do to make people not think that way. People have this tribalistic tendency hardwired into them through their genetics, where our minds kind of just function that way. A lot of people, there's a big spectrum where people fit on the spectrum. Some people are all the way totally tribalistic, and some people are way on the other side where they're like not nationalistic at all. And I consider myself pretty far into that spectrum, where I understand tribalism at the same time reject nationalism and that kind of thing. But there's a huge spectrum there, and I think the human tendency is to gravitate towards that tribalism, emotion. And I don't think that we can really teach that out, and that's why I've come to the conclusion that the most realistic solution here is to break the countries up. Let California secede. Let Catalonia secede. Let Scotland secede. Let Ireland secede. Let Greece and let every country, let Texas secede from the United States. Let people do their thing and let them be a little more tribalistic, because the tendency is going to be there no matter what we try to do. And then at least they can do their own thing locally, and they can, if people in fucking Mississippi don't want Muslims, I don't agree with that. But if I was a Muslim and I realized, shit, these people absolutely hate me, I want to move somewhere where it's a little more friendly to my religion, and I say, well, maybe the state next door in, Louisiana is a little more friendly. I know it's probably not, but, I'm just saying. I think that we should, as much as I disagree with it, I think that's what's going to probably happen, because, we've tried to force people to not be racist. We've tried to write laws against racism. We've tried to write laws against hate speech. And racism to me is the dumbest, worst, rudimentary, basic human instinct thing that is going on. Racism makes me sick. But we've tried basically everything to stop it, and it keeps happening. So let the racists have their little place, and let the people that aren't racist have a much nicer place. And I think that's going to be the short-term thing, and we're going to see it. I mean, you guys listening tonight, make sure to keep an eye on Catalonia, keep an eye on Kurdish independence movement, keep an eye on the California. There's so many movements going on all around the world of secession, within Mexico, within South America, and Europe, and Africa. People are breaking away and saying, you know what, we're going to do things our way because we're tired of you assholes telling us how to do it. The centralized systems of large governments, super states, city states, these ideas are collapsing around us right now as we speak. We're seeing it right now in Europe, dude. You guys are going to see some shit go down in Catalonia this week. You're going to see something happen. All the power structures, the neoliberal, the empire that's been created in the image of the United States around the world, it's collapsing right now, dude. China is going to be the most powerful country, if not already. Everything we know is changing. It's up to us to make
Asia pivot
for our direct area, the people right around us, people, your family, your friends. We need to pick up the pieces and deal with them ourselves, because Trump and all his nonsense and the federal government I'm on my clock like I told you. I'm doing this for dreams we pursuing, but call it a reality cause there's no illusion. This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo. This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo.
listening to UCY.tv.